What happens when you are working on emotional healing and somebody close to you, whether it's a partner or a family member or even a really close friend, is not supportive of your journey? Well, quite a lot. So if you can relate to that, if you've ever had somebody close to you that you've cared about who has been less than really supportive, this video is for you. Or even if you are on this journey and maybe haven't experienced that quite yet, you might, so this video could still be helpful. So welcome. If you're new here, I'm Peggy Oliveira. Thanks so much for being here. Make sure to subscribe and click the bell for notifications. So everybody I think that I have ever worked with, or even that I've known personally, who has experienced childhood trauma or interpersonal trauma, there are people in their lives who are less than supportive of their healing. Maybe even less than supportive of them generally, but particularly with their healing. And there's a spectrum of what that lack of support can look like. Anything from, just wanting to change the subject if you talk about it, all the way to just being abusive towards you generally. And obviously there's a lot of area in the middle there. But all of it has an impact on your process. Obviously on this end, it has more impact, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But it all has an impact because all of it serves to reinforce those core beliefs that you have held on to. And healing is a process of deprogramming those core beliefs so that you can begin to trust and believe in what has always been true for you, that you are in fact worthy, enough, and deserving. But when you have people in your life who are not supportive of your journey, or potentially even rude, disrespectful, hurtful, certainly abusive, any of that actually adds more to what you need to heal from. So think about that for a moment. It's one thing for people to not be supportive of your journey, right? And that doesn't feel good. No matter what your journey is, if you're embarking on a new hobby, the people that you care about, it's nice, right? If they support that. If they're critical of it or telling you that you're being silly for doing it, that doesn't feel very good. And if you're somebody who struggles with worthiness, you might actually give it up. But when we're talking about healing, emotional healing, when somebody even just kind of dismisses something that you're sharing or changes the subject whenever you talk about something, that sends you a message that you don't matter. It could send you a message that these things are not okay to talk about, which can reinforce shame, or even a sense of being not strong enough, because if you were strong enough, you wouldn't be affected by it. So even something on this end of that spectrum actually reinforces pretty significantly those core beliefs. And when you're working to undo those core beliefs, if this person that you talk to on a fairly regular basis is reinforcing that core belief, it's almost like it negates, in a sense, not fully, but in a sense, it can kind of negate the work that you're doing here. All right? Healing is hard enough. Even when you are in a good place and you've got lots of supportive people around you, healing is hard. Changing those core beliefs is incredibly challenging, even under the best circumstances. But when you've got somebody who's reinforcing those ideas, it's harder. Think of it as healing happens in moments, right? And I talk about each of those moments, every step gets you further up that mountain to that summit of healing. And this trek up this mountain, right, is exhausting. It's sometimes feels impossible. You're not even sure that you believe that there is going to be a summit eventually. That's exhausting. It's exhausting physically. It's exhausting emotionally. If the work that you're doing is pushing you up that mountain step by step by step, but then you hear from this person by their actions of being dismissive or whatever they might be saying, again, even on this end of the spectrum, with every step that you try to make, it's like you're mid-step, this person pulls you back real quick. So it's like you can't gain any distance there. Every time you try to take a step, they pull you back. And that can be momentary, depending on how significant that lack of support is or what it is being said. But the further you get to the middle, and certainly to this other end, it's as if you are, it's not just that they are occasionally trying to grab you and pull you back. It's as if they are constantly holding onto your shirt tail, so to speak, trying to drag you back. Like I'm envisioning, like they're laying on the ground, maybe even trying to dig their heels in, holding onto you, trying to pull you back. And of course, this may not be intentional at all, but nonetheless, it's still having the same impact on you. So they're holding you back by their lack of support, by their rude comments, their disrespect, their suggestions that you've changed since you started this process, that who do you think you are? I'm sure you've heard some of these things. There are so many things that people say that are really unkind and rude and disrespectful and even abusive at times. But you're trying to take that step and they're pulling on you. And this is one of the reasons why healing is exhausting. It's one of the reasons why healing takes the time that it does, and why it can feel like even when there are moments of progress, that you've not actually made progress. So even when you're able to take that step, you still feel the weight of that, the pull of that, and so it doesn't feel like anything has really moved. When that person is close to you, so you have a lot of interaction with that person, and the closer the relationship, so family relationships, partnerships, the closer the relationship, the more power they have when they're trying to pull you back. So for example, if you have a session and you feel like it was a good session, you're feeling inspired, you're feeling pride about like what you were able to talk about or some breakthrough that you had, and then even if you don't share that with that person, but you're just feeling good, and then you're around that person and they say or do something that is really hurtful, disrespectful to you. Not only does it just feel like, well, that sucks that they're not supportive, because you are feeling good, like you've taken a couple of steps maybe, when they go to pull you back, it feels like there's a lot more space for them to pull you back to. Like the strength of that is even more powerful. So the impact that it has sometimes in those moments when you're feeling good can feel more significant because it's as if you have further to fall back. I hope that makes sense. And the impact of that, because you feel like you've fallen further back, the impact is more significant in that moment, because then you are doubting yourself. You're buying into what they're saying to you, that what is the point of doing this? Who are you to think that you could ever feel better? And of course, that's not true, but that's how it feels. And so the impact that it has is incredibly significant. So I recently just did a video where I talked about why healing takes the time that it does, because every day we're experiencing things, hearing things, watching things that reinforce those core beliefs. Well, this is And another example of that, and in some ways even a deeper example of that, because when we care about somebody, what they do, how they say, how they show up with us has far more impact on us than somebody that we don't really know or care about. So recognizing that how those people around you show up for you in your life is impacting your healing process. Is it possible to heal with these people trying to hold you back? To a degree, yes. The more it falls to the middle and extreme end of that spectrum, the harder it is. And I would say that at some point on this end, you cannot heal while you're actually in that relationship. When the relationship is abusive, emotionally, psychologically, physically, or sexually, if that continues to happen, you're experiencing more things that you need to heal from. So the work that you're doing moment by moment, trying to get up that mountain, you're doing that, but every time they behave in that way towards you, it is pulling you back. Not like a setback sort of way, but it's just keeping you from being able to go further, because you're doing the work, but then immediately they're undoing that work, so to speak. So I think it can be impossible to fully heal when you are in relationship with people who are incredibly rude, disrespectful, and or abusive. There are things you can do to help you move up that mountain, but you will not reach the summit in those situations. And the reality is that as you heal, as you move up that mountain, you will begin to trust that you are deserving of more than that. You will begin to fully feel grounded in a sense of safety, that it is okay to set those boundaries, to honor those boundaries, and even end those relationships if and when necessary. Because the more you're able to move up that mountain, the more you believe in who you are. The more you trust that who you are is worthy of having people in your life who support you. But it's important to recognize that especially in the relatively early stages of healing, and early doesn't really mean time specifically. Early is, where are you on that mountain? Because some people can be on this journey for 6 months if they've got lots of support in their life, and maybe they were able to talk about things relatively early on. 6 months in, they may feel like they've been able to make some decent progress. Now, they're not going to be at the summit. I can feel very confident in saying that if they've got childhood trauma, interpersonal trauma, because healing is an ongoing process that takes far more than just a few months. But where you are in your healing, again, isn't about time so much. It is about how far up that mountain you've been able to go, even if you're stalled for a while. It's about how far up that mountain you've been able to get to. So when you get to a particular place for yourself, everybody is different. And there are a lot of factors that play into it. Your overall stress. Are there people in your life who are supportive? How much stress do you have in your life in terms of, like, do you have daily stress in terms of being able to pay your bills or keep a job? Health issues, so all of that plays into this. So the further up you go, the more you will begin to recognize that these relationships are not beneficial to you. And not only are they not beneficial to you, but they're actually hurtful to you, that they're adding to what you need to heal from. So ideally, we would be able to set boundaries very early on in relationships. We'd be able to say, oh, this relationship is really unhealthy. I'm not going to participate in this relationship anymore. In an ideal world, we'd all be able to do that. But we live in a real world, and nobody can do that. Truly, I've never met anybody who can do that, because it's not about making a decision. There are so many factors that play into why or how we're not able to do that. So being able to really recognize that when you are feeling like you are not progressing in the way that you want to be, to take a look at the people around you and their support or lack thereof. And then be gentle with yourself. Recognize that if the people around you are reinforcing those core beliefs, it's going to be a lot harder to change those core beliefs. And eventually, you'll be able to set boundaries, whatever that ends up looking like for you, with those people. But in the meantime, just reminding yourself so that you don't end up feeling like you're failing or you'll never be able to get there. Because that's what happens for a lot of people. And that just isn't the truth. You have to be gentle with yourself. You have to be compassionate in understanding that when there is somebody in your life who continues to say and do things to you that reinforce that you're not good enough, it's going to be really hard to believe and trust that you are good enough. So compassion, understanding, and working to recognize that this healing process is not just about you making a decision. There are a lot of factors that play into how your process unfolds. And the more unsupportive people you have in your life, the more challenging it is to move up that mountain. I hope you found this helpful. I would love to hear from you. What came up for you? If you think about it, have you had those moments where you feel like you're making a step forward and somebody's like pulling you back, even if not intentionally, even if they're not, deliberately doing something, or it seems obvious that what they're doing is pulling you back? I think we've all probably had that. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll look forward to seeing you next time. And if you haven't yet subscribed, make sure to do so and click the little bell for notifications. And if you found it helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up so other people can find it too. Thanks for watching.